human reincarnation process on planet Earth is a process of self-mastery. Beings who come to Earth know that they are going to take on many different bodies throughout time and will experience many different templates of human consciousness. Now, the reason beings take on many different bodies and different templates for consciousness is so that they can become masterful. And to be masterful is to be well-rounded. So we can see it as the zodiac, Aries to Pisces. Within each zodiac, there are, I'm going to say, 82 facets of each zodiac. And each 82 facets of each zodiac wants to be developed. And in the development of a single facet, let's say within Aries, it can take 12 lifetimes. Just an estimate, depending on that person's ability to concentrate and focus. So, planet Earth requires a lot of concentration and focus, because this planet can get very distracted. So when the Buddhists discuss about reincarnation being an involuntary cycle of death and rebirth that seems to go on and on almost aimlessly, is because beings get very distracted. They get distracted on planet Earth. They're zapped into the matrix that is planet Earth. But a part of ascension, transcendence, is to concentrate and to focus. So every practice of spirituality, either it's Buddhism, one form of meditation, either it's concentrating on reading the Quran, or concentrating on listening to the guru, or the teacher, or the priest, there is a development of concentration and focus. So for all spiritual practices, either it is yoga, either it is Tai Chi, Qigong, either it is a form of recitation of mantra, it is developing concentration and focus. Because without concentration and focus, human can start to wander, human can get distracted, and human can become very earthbound, and then start to recycle aimlessly for depending how long that person is carrying the distractive behavior. But human wants to have self-mastery. And that's why the reincarnation process will continue. It will continue as long as the concentration and focus of that particular being demands it. So the reincarnational cycle is depending on the being's ability to concentrate and focus. So with these family templates, so we do enter into these family templates. And the one thing about these family templates is we have an incarnate family. And that incarnate family, we experience them for multiple lifetimes. It can be, so in the greater view of reincarnation, we can see a cycle. A cycle isn't just a single life. A cycle isn't, I was born to this and I die in this. The cycle is seen as the being itself. The being it could take a multitude of bodies for the being to understand or for the being to learn the lesson. So when we talk about a cycle, that cycle, it all depends on the being's concentration, focus, and awareness. So it could take a single lifetime, it could take 300 years, 500 years of being in that cycle for that being to develop a level of concentration, of focus, and awareness to learn the lesson. So the incarnate family we travel into is a part of our growth and development. In order for us to break through, okay, to raise our self-worth, which is the overall, you can say, achievement, excellence of human, is when human develops a higher self-worth and a higher self-esteem. It's when we talk about the excellence of human, which is to be very noble, to possess a spiritual power, a beauty, and a freedom. That is human excellency, brilliancy, that's human leadership, to possess spiritual power, beauty, and as well as freedom. So in these incarnate families, we can create these sort of energetic ties, and we can almost create a whole energetic a ball of yarn with these incarnate family members. And that is from emotions. We are very emotional on planet Earth. And we create a lot of emotional connections. And these emotional connections can see them as bonds. We can also see them as interlocks. Right? Bonds can be very kindred, very platonic, very childlike, very loving and joyful. But we could also see interlocks, which can see as the polarity of that, where our emotional ties or our attachments can be of anger and of resentment and of embarrassment, of hate, of shame, and so on. So we do create both. We create very loving bonds, emotional sort of connections that draw us to these people, as well as the other resentment. So for us in the self-mastery, it is to become emotionally free. So when we talk about the Buddha and the spiritual practice of freedom, free yourself, non-attachment, non-attachment to person, place, and thing, is how we are to have emotions that are unified. So a lot of us, our emotions are focused not on the self and not on the sovereignty and the liberty of the self, but a lot of times are focused on the grief of someone else, focused on the resentment towards someone else, focused on the romantic love towards someone else. And therefore, we continue to play out these stories with these people that our emotions are deeply attached or involved with, and that can be a form of distraction for some people. And the way that it can take concentration, focus, and awareness off of the knowing of self and begin to put it on the intrigue. I am intrigued by this story I'm playing out with someone. And we play out many stories. We're intrigued by all kinds of emotional bonds and connections and attachments on this planet, because that's just who we are. We are very much emotionally involved with each other, very deeply. We get very, very emotionally involved with people. But sometimes these emotional involvements can play out for very, very, very long time. And it can actually stun our growth because we get very comfortable with these sort of bonds. They make us feel comfy and cozy. And a part of our self-mastery as a being is that we desire to, and the universe will provide that for us. We wish to evolve spiritually, materially, emotionally. So sometimes these bonds that we may carry for multiple lifetimes, we can play it out again and again and again and again, the same story. It can distract us or inhibit us from expanding our consciousness and stepping out of our comfort zone, essentially, and moving into a new era, a new age of our human destiny. So when we talk about transformation, that's also in every spiritual practice. Transformation, change, that word change, transformation, change. And when that star comes their way, that northern star of change and transformation, many people start to become a little bit nervous and maybe a little anxious or maybe fearful, depending on how much self-esteem and self-worth they have, how secure they feel in their emotions. Right? So when change and transformation comes, basically it is our evolutionary necessity to move into the new era and the new age. And for a lot of humans, we are all beings and we all have our own individual psychic record. And many connections are not necessarily going to move together. Many connections will move together. But again, the free will, the practice of free will on this planet Earth is that you are creator and you can create what you desire in this life. Now, when it comes to the evolutionary necessity, that will still happen. You will still have change and you still have transformation. It will be required upon you because you agreed to it. Everybody agrees to a level of the amount of change and transformation they desire in this lifetime to accelerate their growth and their development of their consciousness. So the more change you have in a single life, the more growth and development you can have, because change is growth. So for human, a lot of times human in a single life can spend 50 years of absolutely bare minimum change in their life. And 50 years can become an experience of very, very little amount of self-mastery. So the thing about having multiple incarnations is we do have amnesia, right? Our human genetic or our human code, our human cellular makeup, our brain, the human brain can be able to process, you can say, multiple lifetimes. But it has to be worked out. It has to be unlocked and developed. And for human species right now, a lot of the brain cannot hold that amount of information from multiple lifetimes, right? It comes in spurts. It comes in dreams. It comes in vague. It comes in like a whisper, right? It doesn't come in as vivid as the information truly is. We can only get a very we'll say a basic. We have to compartmentalize it to a basic sort of information in order for our human brain to retain it, and for our human brain to actually understand. So for a lot of times, incarnation, we're born, let's say we live 80 years, we'll just say 80 years. A part of self mastery is that we want to unlock as much information, as much data from all of our lifetimes on planet Earth, even on Mars, right? And even if we can, on other star systems, in a single life. Because it is true, when people die and they know they die or going to die, a lot of times they hold on. They hold on because they know that they're going to have to start the process all over again in the next life, right? So it's absolutely important that people do, if for a level of self-mastery, you have to unlock your brain, and you have to develop the strength of mind so that you can actually be able to unlock all of this information, data of your many lifetimes, because that's the only way that you're going to really develop a awareness and develop consciousness. And consciousness is how you are able to pull into this reality all the talents, the strengths, and gifts of the multiple incarnations you've had. And as well, you can download the life lessons. You can resolve the unresolved issues in those multiple incarnations. And that's how in a single lifetime you can experience all lifetimes. And that is very much the when you talk about the arc, right? The arc of ascension, or the arc line, or the arc to the golden temple of your human nobility, is to be able to be well-rounded in your, you can say, your many incarnations in a single life. So we're here in this physical body, I'm going to say 80 years, but in this 80 years we're really meant to really take on the information data of many incarnations. Many incarnations. Now, some incarnations we don't take on the data of every single incarnation, because some we can see it as, when we get so distracted, that incarnation becomes kind of what you call like a dud. Really, no incarnation is a dud, because everything is a process it's an experience, right? That you can have knowledge to it. But when there's an incarnation of just distraction, and there's absolutely no sense of concentration at all, that's when these incarnations become like filler. They become filler incarnations, just like we can see it like a television show, where it becomes almost miscellaneous seeming, right? But those incarnations, very few when we talk about the big arc line of the, say, thousands of years of time on planet Earth. Those are very few. And the spirit guides and the angels do not allow that. They very much are. They don't allow that kind of distractive, sort of miscellaneous activity of free will, right? That kind of free will, they do not. They will do whatever they can to really block out that sort of experience. But again, the free will, it has to be developed. It has to be developed. The only way we can develop is we have to experience our choices. We have to experience our distraction and our concentration. So anybody who really develops, again, in the self-mastery we've developed, each zodiac, the 12 zodiac, the 82 facets of each zodiac. Each zodiac is can see it as a brain, right? It's a mind. It has its own sort of mind, and there's 82 facets of the mind within each. We want to take on all of that in a single lifetime, right? Aries, Taurus, Gemini, so on and so forth, all the way to Pisces, and take on the 82 facets of each of those. We want to do that in a single life, but how we do that is we really have to concentrate. So those people who have developed a supreme concentration, such as Nikola Tesla, Da Vinci, any sort of guru or master or yogi, we can talk about even the archangels, ascended beings, right? People who are visionary, people who are extremely creative, imaginative, psychic, people who are very, very aware of themselves and aware of the information on planet Earth, such as the Akashic record of planet Earth. Right? People who are very studious, and people who are very much teachers or philosophers or professors. These kinds of individuals, they have a huge, strong sense of concentration. Because in order to really retain information, not just retain it, because a lot of the brain cannot retain information. It comes in and it goes out. Because our brain, the human species of the brain, it has not been developed, especially recently, by many generations. It hasn't really been worked out. The mind, we haven't really worked on the mind for a very long time. We've been more primal, and we've been more physical. So we've lived more of a more physical demanding life in our, you can say, our later or earlier ancestor lineage. But now we're starting to become more intellectual, and that's the great sort of change or transformation, is now that we have to work on the mind. Before, we were very much primal. We were just about the senses, the instinct, the primal senses involving the body. But now we're starting to really concentrate on the mind, especially with this technology. Everything is becoming the mind, the mind, the mind, the mind. Everything's about strengthening the mind. There's so much vast information that's constantly poured into the mind, and a lot of the information, people cannot retain it. They can't even understand it. They can't even really, it goes above their head, in essence. It just goes above their head. Whoosh, it goes in, it goes out. Because the brain, it hasn't been developed. So the information wants to come in, and it wants to bring a level of awareness. But since our brain, it isn't strong enough to be able to take the information, it just kind of, it comes in and then it just kind of immediately goes out. Or we have a mental breakdown. One or the other, right? We have a mental breakdown where we feel like we're going crazy, we're going insane, and some people do go insane. And that's why aliens do not just walk around on planet Earth, because aliens have such a high caliber of the way that they could take in information. Aliens actually hold all of their incarnations in their brain, right? And a lot of aliens live for at least, sometimes it could be 300 years, depending on that particular being and where they come from and what star system and the genetic code of that particular species. But vast majority of these extraterrestrials or these higher beings, they can actually retain and hold multiple incarnations of information, not just of their being, their soul, but also of their planet and of other planets that they have traveled to throughout time. So if we encounter with these kind of ETs, we would have a mental breakdown, we would go crazy, we would go insane, because that level of psychic energy penetrating us, right, really penetrating us, we wouldn't be able to handle it. We would mentally break down, because what it would do is it would really open up time, and we would start to see time in a multi-dimensional arena, and start to see it in a multi sort of personality, and we can barely even handle the personalities we have now, let alone take on a multi-dimensional sort of multi-perspective, perceptional consciousness. Like we can barely even handle our own, let alone a being who has like 7,000 energies of intellect just streaming through them all at once. Like their consciousness and their stream of consciousness, there's a lot of it sewn together, right? It's a lot that's sewn together into that stream of consciousness. Well, we as human, the more that we become aware and the more that we strengthen, unlock the mind, the more energies that we can channel as well, that we can unite to our stream of consciousness. But again, it is our human species currently as it stands It only has so much it can handle, right? So we just, our human species, it has its limitation, it has its restriction, and we can only retain so much information. We can only hold and channel so much information at a single time. We are very multidimensional in essence, but we haven't developed that part of ourselves. We talk about many incarnations. We talk about time not being linear, past, present, future being simultaneous. Like all of that, we cannot possibly perceive that because our mind hasn't evolved to that yet. And that's why this technology age is here, and that's why the we're starting to focus on the mind, because we're starting to open up to our timeless nature. Because in order for us to really master, right, for us to master is that we do have to unite with ourselves, and not just who we are now, but in the timelessness of who we are. So multiple incarnations. And that's the only way that we can really end this, for some, this aimlessly reincarnating cycle where we keep creating the same stories with the same sort of energy dynamics and have it keep repeating and repeating and repeating. And then creating the same emotional response and the same emotional sort of free choice, right? So part of free will and the great epiphany or revelation of free will is that we are sovereignty. Make a new choice. Make a new choice. That is what free will is for. Free will is not you do whatever you want, to whoever you want. I mean, that is something you can do, but there's great consequences to that, right? There's great consequences, and we all know that deep on a soul level, to doing whatever we want, to whoever we want. There's great consequences in the way that we can actually alter and we can affect our spiritual growth. We can actually affect this entire incarnational, we can actually infect this entire incarnation, right? So that's why free will choice, it must be developed. And that's why there's great unconditional love and great compassion for that. And the way that free will is not to create unresolved ties or unresolved emotions or just unresolved bonds with people. Free will is actually to make a new choice. It gives us the sovereignty, the dignity. Actually, when we're inside a template, let's say a family template, a reincarnated family, continued participation in this sort of family, this family group, right? And our free will gives us the option to walk away from it entirely, right? To make a new choice. So we can always change and transform regardless of what we're placed into. And that's the great power that has been stolen or has been blocked from a lot of on this planet. It has been blocked, that truth of free will. Free will is that we can make a change, that we can transform, that we can make a new choice. That's our divine right. So what that means is that we have it within us, depending on our level of concentration, focus, and our level of energy, meaning emotional energy, that is balanced, that is resolved, and that is clean and clear. We have enough spiritual power, emotional power, even mental power, physical power, neutral power to actually experience monumental quantum leaps in a single life, to actually break through in many ways. And this is what we desire as a human in the self-mastery. But it takes immense spiritual power, emotional, mental, physical, and that for humankind it can be shared through like generations who have been developing it and taught and teach it. It can be taught to us, by the generation, right? We can be brought into a generation, or lineage that actually has a very, very strong emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual power, because the whole lineage is actually focused and concentrated on that, and have excelled. Or we can incarnate into a family lineage that has not excelled whatsoever in all these areas, and then we have agreed that it's the older souls, the stronger souls, agreed that we would like to completely change and transform and reform the entire lineage, right? But regardless, we want to get into a mind, body, and spirit power for self-mastery. So self-mastery, what that looks like is simply you can see it as completing a mission, because a lot of beings come to Earth because they want to complete a mission, or they have a mission and they want to complete a mission. Planet Earth and Mars is very much about mission. There's a sense of mission. There's a sense of, as well as guardianship, right, over the planet, over even preserving knowledge, because a lot of knowledge can be obliterated on this planet, just by groups of people, or groups of people that they just want that information gone. So it could also be guardianship of information. It could be resurrecting information or knowledge. Also, again, guardianship over groups of people, right, as protectors. There's a sense of warrior of planet Earth. There's a sense of, I'm a guardian, I'm a protector, I'm a leader, right? I have a mission. So a lot of beings, they come here because they want to complete a mission. Usually that has to do with knowledge, in the way that there's something knowledge that they want to complete. They want to complete the download. And sometimes the download, it takes multiple lifetimes for the download to actually all the way to come through. For the download to actually create, think of like the Holy Bible. The Holy Bible is a complete download, right? It's a complete body of work. The Quran, complete body of work. Now that took multiple lifetimes for the Bible to be completed. Think of all the stories that did not happen in a single life. That took multiple sort of lifetimes. It took a multi-dimensional perspective. It's multi-faceted, and it's very, very spherical when it comes. It's very timeless. Very, very timeless, even though it does have a time and a stamp on it, right? It's very, very timeless. So it is, in truth, it is very much represents like a self-mastery, or even the Quran, or even we think about the Bhagavad Gita, right? It's a complete body of work. So in our mission, it can be just like as simple as we can see as completing the Holy Bible, but it takes multiple lifetimes to have the experience to actually and have the storyline, right? It's multiple stories that are playing out simultaneously to actually have to actually bring down the complete download. So that's why we before we even start our we can see our missionary work, right? We can see it as that we have to actually have a lot of experience. But then when we start to concentrate and focus, just like a student, we become more studious in nature rather than just primal and just here for the moment. When we become more studious, we actually begin to become more aware, and we start to work on consciousness, right? Consciousness, which is about unlocking the mind and channeling through the mind, channeling through the body, channeling through the energy, creativity. So in our higher destiny, we're meant to be creative as human. So humanity and the self-mastery is creativity. Think of the Holy Bible, that is extremely creative. The Quran, extremely creative. Think of any completed work, even when we think of Michelangelo, right? And the the completed work. Right? We have so many completed works on this planet Earth, even when it comes to technology, like Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla, he was so multidimensional. He unlocked his mind so thoroughly because he was so concentrated and devoted to his mind from age 0, and he was devoted to his mind for multiple incarnations, not just one. He was devoted and concentrated on his work for several lifetimes. Not just he came in this lifetime and the lifetime before that he was a bozo. No, he was concentrated, and he didn't come from here. He also was studying as a human on another planet, like a human sort of hybrid energy on another planet. Could even be some other planet that he was working on as well. So he came in here and he hit the ground running from like age 0. He was concentrating, he was focused, he was unlocking his mind at age 0 all the way to the age he died. And he completed his mission. He had more information, but that information, he reached his time. You only have so many breaths you can take in a lifetime. And Nikola Tesla knew that. So he wasn't just sitting around twiddling his thumb, distracted. He understood that he decided in this life he would like to complete it. And he did. He had the experience, he had the knowledge, he had the mind power, the emotional power, the physical power, as well as the spiritual power to do it, because he prepared, he trained for multiple incarnations to have that incarnation that he had. So he hit the ground running, and he was very concentrated. And though he wanted to download more, he actually could have downloaded at least 1,000 years, which he did already. Download 1,000 years of information to give to humanity. But he pretty much he did download that enough, right, to help to stabilize humanity and technology for at least 100 or at least 500 years, right? 500, even going up to 1,000 years, because more of his patent inventions will be unlocked and they will be deciphered. A lot of his inventions are not deciphered right now, because they were visions, they were visualizations that seem very abstract, but they will be unlocked, and human will be able in the next 500 years or so be able to actually download, because Nikola Tesla, as all beings, especially higher dimensional beings, Nikola Tesla, he would draw it. He had visions, he could visualize, and his visions gave him the complete download. But human, he knew human isn't like that. Human, I can't just project a vision to you and you're gonna get everything. You're gonna know exactly what I'm saying, or exactly the science and the theory and the math behind it. We as humans, we have to have it broken down. We have to have it broken down, detail for detail for detail, for us to get it. But Nikola Tesla, he had the bigger view. He would just visualize and he would map the whole thing in the form of like a code. And if you could unlock the code, you could get the whole download. But a lot of people currently cannot unlock the code, right? They can't unlock it to get the full download, and all they have is just sort of a basic abstract view of Nikola Tesla's idea for a particular invention. But if they unlock the code, they will find the whole thing opens up, and what seems basic, when you unlock it, underneath it is actually the whole entire information, all the information you need to actually create that invention in the physical form. So that is very much what aliens do, right? That's very much what they do. They're not gonna sit day by day like in school, and they're just gonna tell all the little basic things for years, right? A lot of times, since they are so they have a higher mind, they just give you the code, the basic code, and you unlock the code through your own mind, and underneath that code, that basic sort of coding, you get the whole information, and it comes through consciousness, meaning it comes through as a download, it comes through as a vision, it comes through as a knowing. It's not something you need to practice. right? Because these higher dimensional beings have already practiced, you know, already practice the receiving of knowledge, that they don't need to necessarily practice it as we as human. We have to repeat, we have to recite, we have to, that's just who we are. We have to recite it, we have to repeat it again and again and again and again for us to really get the knowledge, because as our human species, we're not there yet. We can't just learn it, see it, smell it, or hear it one time and get it. Right? We're just not like that. Nikola Tesla, he could have a single vision one night and he'd get the whole thing. And he would just know exactly how to, all the sort of information from just a basic vision. But we as human, that's why incarnation is about recitation, right? We have to recite the knowledge again and again and again until it becomes second nature, right? And then we have incarnation, where we call it, an old soul, right? A young person who is 10 years old and they're a prodigy. And we're like, where does this come from? Is because they have perfected that knowledge through multiple recitations, multiple recitations. They become a prodigy because they have concentrated, focused so much on that work, that body of work, that all of a sudden, in this life, it just, it keeps going, right? So recitation has to, when we have recitation of, let's say, self-mastery, right, of a mission or of some sort of creative expression, we actually, it goes on and regardless of what life we're in or what family we incarnate with, it just will keep going. And that's kind of, when we talk about the higher soul, the higher incarnation on planet Earth, is to have a creative power. We have creative power. When we also have, again, emotional, mental, physical, spiritual power as well, we're actually able to really get down on earth and hit the ground running. But again, it's the distraction that really can delay, and that can really have us be ungrateful, unappreciative, and really have us be victim, and really have us really just get caught in these sort of, I call it these undertow, these loops, right? These cycles of anger and resentment, and that can spin us off into many realities where we play out many stories with people, places, and things. And a lot of times that's not what we really came here to do. We experience that for temporarily, but we're not meant to experience that for very long. We're not meant to experience that for 500 years, right? That's stagnant, and that's what we call a lost soul. When you experience the same resentment for 500 years, you're a lost soul, right? You're a lost soul. And the angels, they will do their best to correct that. But again, that's not why we came to Earth, to participate in the cycling through the same anger and resentment for who knows, 500 years. That's what we call a lost soul, an earthbound soul, or we say the trapped soul. In essence, nobody's trapped, nobody's lost, nobody is earthbound, right? It's just a matter of fact of the deeper you go into it, the more energy you need to come out of it. So the more energy you give to it, you need that same amount of energy to get out of it, right? And a lot of people know that. So it's great. It's very painful for a lot of people you put a lot of energy into this 500-year resentment towards this karmic tie or whatever it is, this cause and effect thing, game, story you keep playing with this person. It can even be like envy, it could be revenge, whatever it is that you play out as like a distraction, right? You're distracting yourself from your self-mastery, from your mission, from your creative expansion, right? Because you don't have self-worth, you don't have self-esteem. A human without self-worth, without self-esteem, just spends their life distracted, or lifetimes distracted. So self-worth and self-esteem has to be developed, and for a human to change, to transform, to start to even begin their creative process, right? Creative process it's stored within us. So it's not some people are creative, some people are not. It's stored within all of us. All of us have had many incarnations of concentrating on whatever creative expression that is uniquely our own. It's just a matter of fact, it's stored within us until we feel safe, until we feel comfortable, until we feel our self-worth and our self-esteem is at a good, noble place. Then we will unlock it, right? But until then, we're going to have to really create an environment, a space for us to do that. So that means if we're in a space of, all this anger, resentment towards mom and dad, or these relationships that are really taking a toll on our self-worth and our self-esteem, don't make us feel safe, or if we don't really feel free, or if we're not beautiful, if we don't have, feel beautiful or spiritual power, all of that is just going to be stored until we actually have the environment, the space to actually let it come out, to unlock it. So it's all stored within us, all of it. So with, again, the distraction, the lost soul, the wandering, it all is about these individuals have such low self-worth, have such low self-esteem. And the only way out of that is you have to build up your self-worth and you have to build up your self-esteem. And that's what's going to help you to concentrate, and that's what's going to help you to focus. And that's what's going to help you to really open up your mind and see the bigger picture. Right? Because again, when we're here on Earth, we see the basics. Right? We see the basics of the here and now. And some people get so in the here and now, they don't even see the bigger picture. And a lot of times we don't see the bigger picture, which as humans a lot of times we're not meant to see the bigger picture, because we are meant to be very present, because there's so much we can complete in this single moment, right? The whole bigger picture happens in this moment, not just we see our whole life in a flash of a vision, or we're not meant to see our whole life in a flash of a vision. We have that capacity, but we're meant to see the bigger picture in what we are capable of doing in this moment now, which is a lot. People don't realize what we're capable of doing in a single moment. We're capable of doing a lot, but only the meditative mind can actually really do that, because the meditative mind knows time is not linear, time is timeless, right? Time is spherical. Time is like origami. I can shapeshift it, I can surf it, I can transverse through the many aspects of myself and in my childhood, my present, my future, right? I have that within me. So it is possible with the meditative mind to actually have a lot done in this single moment, to complete a lot in this single moment, but it's only through meditative mind. Because the meditative mind is actually the most open, expanded, and conscious, aware, concentrated mind. And the more we are that, the more that we can actually begin to not only prepare for our future and actually create the right sort of mental sort of mind wave to actually excel in our future, but also we can resolve the past, right? Really heal the past. We can also really develop our self-worth and our self-esteem in this moment here. So we have that meditative capacity to visualize for the future and to manifest for the future, to manifest for the past, and manifest for the present. So that's kind of our higher incarnational sort of self. But again, with reincarnation, it's meditative mind. Those people who are working on a meditative mind are considered working towards like old soul, right? When I say old soul, it's more so we think old as knowledge. Like old soul just simply means somebody who has a lot of experience. They've unlocked a lot of their lifetimes, and they're very knowledgeable because that. Like we think of an old person biologically. They've had a lot of experience on planet Earth. They've learned a lot, right? They've had a lot of studies, and that's why they're considered elderly or considered supposedly wise. But a lot of old people biologically are not in wise, because just because you have a lot of experience doesn't mean you've had a lot of change, and that doesn't mean you've had a lot of transformation, right? Experience doesn't mean change or transformation. Change or transformation comes from change of perspective, change of perception, change of belief system, right? A change of your lifestyle, the way you view things, right? Your understanding, your identity, your viewpoint, your ideology, right? So you can have much experience of your ideology and your limiting belief, but it don't mean that you're considered wise, right? We're not meant to take on a single ideology. We're actually meant to have all the ideologies as many as possible, so that we can really have the fullness of perspective. Because one perspective is not even close to the knowledge of having the perspective of multiple, right? So experience is meant to open up just perspective, perception, belief system, ideology, way of thinking, way of self, identity, so that we can really become studious in the well-rounded view, in the way that we want to participate in, we want to learn, and we want to become dynamic. We want to have a range. So again, every being has their own sort of study in this life, but every life is a study, right? But we're not just studying one thing, we're really studying how we can unify, right? We can unify, because this life, planet Earth, can be so divided, so divided that we are like literally attacking each other over our perspectives. We're attacking each other, constantly, aggressively attacking each other, right? So unity is really what is kind of like the bigger picture. To find that unity, find that compassion, right? To find that the change and the transformation, where we're not bound to ideology, we're not getting, it's the supreme of the supreme. We're getting into a place of we're a student, we want to learn, and information is not always true, right? Information is false and true, right? There's both. So we have to, as a sovereign being, we have to be in the know, right? We have to be in the know, because there's plenty of false information floating on the ethers, plenty of true information. But on planet Earth, we tend to be a planet that has a lot more false information than true information, right? It appears that way in the mainstream media, that there's just a bunch of false information everywhere, and we don't even know. We're confused. Human is confused because they're not in the know of their own sort of self. Right? They don't really even. They are absent a lot of times from their instinct, from their intuition. So they don't know false from true, true from false, and everything in between, because it's very convoluted, combative, and the discord on this planet just creates a lot of distrust in self. Right? So almost like we are bred to distrust ourselves, because when we distrust ourselves, we can never really make a corrective, constructive, or creative decision, because we don't trust ourselves, so we don't make a decision at all. Or we make decisions that are for the now, or decisions that are based on our ideology, but never do we make decisions that are from a place of, this is my intuition, this is my instinct, this is my gut, this is my psychic awareness, my sovereignty, right? So we just procrastinate, or we don't do anything at all, or we make decisions that are just a distraction, right? But that's just kind of the planet we live on, as we do live on a planet that does have a sort of control thing going on, kind of like a control freak thing. That's not just planet Earth, but it's been many sort of other community around us. but a part of human excellence and human species actually excelled so much in its spiritual growth, especially during this matriarchal ages, that human actually earned, right, the level when you say spiritual power, beauty, and freedom. So human is a sovereign, human is sovereignty. Human has it's not owned, right? This planet, if it has ever been owned, or has people, beings have made it seem like we are owned, right? We are indebted, right, to other beings, because there's a lot of I'm indebted to you stuff that goes on this planet. I'm indebted to the government for just being born, so I'm enslaved because I'm just born in this country, right? There's a lot of indebted, even humanity at one time, thousands and thousands of years ago, felt indebted to another alien race, right? So we play out this "you're indebted to me" stuff, and we play it out in our reincarnations as well. I'm indebted to you because I did not, you taught me many things, and I'm indebted to you, right? But in the reality, nobody's really indebted to everybody. It's more so we are generous to each other, unconditionally loving, because we understand that when we do share and when we do care, we help each other out. We help each other. So in the truth, everybody gets what they put out. So when people are very generous, very caring, sharing, they, in natural law, everybody will get what they put out. Everybody gets who they are, right? They get the vibration, right? Their vibration they put out, that's the vibration that the environment reflects back. It's just kind of how it is. So the indebted society, it really comes from the matrix, and it really comes from this hierarchical caste system that was created by the patriarchal age thousands of years ago. Even before that, this patriarchal age has always been stream and planned. It has always been kind of going on. And it's heavy, this indebted, right? And I'm indebted to the king because I'm just alive, right? We're indebted to some higher energy, and basically that supposedly king or government or higher energy beings, aliens, whatever, supposedly we have to give our power to them, our spiritual power, emotional power, mental power, physical power to these people to pay off our debt. And then by the time that supposedly our debt is clear, we're too old to actually to do a new way, to make a new choice, right? We're too old. We're 50s, 60s, right? Retirement age, right? We're too old. We're too tired because we've given all of our mental, emotional, physical, spiritual energy to pay off our debt for just being alive. And then we have no energy really left to our own sovereignty, to our own self-mastery, to our own creativity, to our own mission, because we're like 60 and we actually didn't even prepare and train at all, right? Creativity doesn't just come on when you're 60 in retirement, all of a sudden just boop, it just comes on. I mean, it can, but a lot of times it takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of concentration for years on end before you can really, boop, have that moment, that light bulb. So, and that takes you having the spiritual power, the beauty, and the freedom to actually be able to work on your mind. So a lot of this indebted stuff we have for many, many thousands of years is very much, it takes the focus away from one's mind, and it puts the focus on the other mind, the God mind, right? So when we really focus away from our own mind, right, I'm in the know of who I am, my sovereignty, I trust myself. When you put all of that trust, right, the know comes from the God or the priest, the king, then all of a sudden there's no you basically give all your power away, right? And you don't trust yourself enough. So when the priest says, hey, I need you to, have sex with me or something like that, you're like, okay, because you don't understand, oh, wait a minute, I don't think I'm supposed to give my sexual energy to this king. Now this priest wants my sexual energy now, I don't know if this is going to help me. I don't know. But we don't have enough self-trust, self-worth, self-esteem. We're not even have, power of our own mind. We are not in the know of our spiritual or spirit or psyche, or psychic energy, as well as our intuition. So we just do it, right? So, and therefore creating giving the power over us, right? Especially sex. We can actually give our power away through sex. We're not aware of that, but we actually can exchange, create a sexual, emotional tie with people that we have sex with, that can actually create more confusion in our life, almost like unnecessary, like extra confusion that is just unnecessary, right? It's something we don't necessarily have to have. We can create it because we have free will, but it's not something that is totally necessary, right? A lot of times it can be just a cycle, a repeating cycle, of other lifetimes of distraction. So, but when we think about the Moses lineage, right? The Moses kind of lineage about the sovereignty, right? That's what Moses taught about. You have mind. Develop your mind. Stop giving your mind to this king who's telling you this false information about, you need to have sex with the king in order to, to pay off your debt, right? So he really broke down that sort of indebted society sort of thing. He broke it down by he trained his people to focus on the mind. He trained them the mind. He didn't preach them anything. He taught them the mind, their own mind, so that they could be in the know of their instincts, their intuition, so that they could sniff out false information from true information, right? In order to really sniff out false information from true information, you have to really develop your mind. You have to be in the know. You have to be instinct. You have to have intuition. You have to have a level of clarity amongst all the confusion and all the sort of distraction that is everywhere, seducing and very enticing, to get overindulge to the point where you start to, your self-worth, your self-esteem is like really low, too low, to the point where you don't respect yourself. People don't respect you. You're not honorable. Yeah, you're not noble, and people know that, and therefore people don't listen, and you're not credible, right? You're not a credible person, and that's the one thing that is on a mission. Credibility comes from self-worth, self-esteem. It comes from consistency, concentration, and it really comes from your creativity, your creativity flourishing, right? Your creativity abundant. That's very credible, a lot more than your mind games, your distractions, and how much you can talk and talk and talk, right? Moses was more of, let me show you, let me teach you, we're gonna do it together. Let's have an actual experience and participation of the power of the mind. Not let me just talk and preach all day about some sort of stories that just kind of I don't really have any sort of deep connection to. So this is kind of just a little about the power of the mind. Not the power of the mind, but the reincarnation of human. And the reincarnational cycle, right? And what we're here to do, like self-mastery. We're here to concentrate, to focus, so that we can really work on our creativity, right? To be creative, so we can really get out the whole download, get out the whole body of work that we really want to get out of. And it doesn't have to be something that's super complex or super complicated either. It doesn't have to be something like Nikola Tesla or Da Vinci. When we think of Michelangelo, or even think of Lao Tzu, like these were complete bodies of work, right? Even Alan Watts, complete body of work. There was so much information that came out of these people, And I think that's what really we're meant to tap into when we look at like the self-mastery of our incarnational experience from timeless view. We really want to get to the point where we have a mind that can really tap into a vast amount of information from all of our incarnations and all the teachers and all the that we've ever had, right? And let it come through us in the form of art or the form of poetry, if you're Lao Tzu, or or Michelangelo, or art, or music or dance or something that's liberating. Everything that these sort of quote unquote masters done is for liberty. Alan Watts, liberty. Lao Tzu, liberty, right? And information that doesn't really provide a sense of liberty usually is incomplete in the way it still needs more. It still needs more experience. It still needs more, like, think of it, I need to have more research, right? So that's what we have lifetimes, so we can have more research, so we can study more, so that we're not meant to have anger and we're not just meant to have bliss. We're meant to have both the perspective of anger and bliss so that we can have the total view, because we are both, right? We are, aimlessly raging in anger, and we're also in, consistent in bliss. So when we have both of those perspectives, then we can actually have the full picture, because the full picture is your multidimensional, multi-incarnational sort of life in this single life. So when we look at Yogi Bhajan was completing multiple lifetimes in a single lifetime. And he actually pushed himself so hard, that's why he left his body. And that's why he got sick. And that's why even Edgar Cayce left. Because Edgar Cayce was doing so much channeling. He had so much information. He was trying to get it out so quick. Because he had so much. It was just coming. Like a flood, a rain that just never end. And Alan Watts had so much psychic energy for multiple lifetimes of developing it that he could live to be very old. But since he was constantly channeling his readings to people and for the collective, that he really, his system, his mind, right? That this human mind can only take so much. Even Yogi Bhajan, he's a part of human species. You can up-level human species, but you're still human species. You cannot change human species. That takes evolution. No powerful guru can just change human species. Just in a single, it takes evolution. It takes generations to change the human species. So the human species had a max, and Yogi Bhajan was really pushing it too much that he got sick, and same as like Edgar Cayce, right? And that kind of thing. But it is very, very possible, capable, and part of reality, mastery for human to have that level of information, have that level of attentiveness, studiousness, devotion, creative explosion, right? It is possible for human to have that much creative explosion, like Edgar Cayce with his psychic readings, Yogi Bhajan with his Kundalini yoga teaching, Lao Tzu with his philosophical teachings, Alan Watts with his philosophical teachings, Da Vinci with his paintings, Michelangelo, sculpture, paintings. It is possible to have that amount of creativity, but it's so much concentration every single day, and it's so much devotion, and so much awareness, and so much self-worth, self-esteem, and also a lot of deep self-trust. And that comes from spiritual power, beauty, and freedom. It comes from sovereignty. That from getting out of the I'm indebted society kind of stuff, and really getting into unifying your own mind, body, and spirit, unifying your emotions. So cutting out those emotional ties that keep you emotionally thinking and in a memory and tied to people, or you constantly like either you're feeling them, you're sensing them, you're always in conversation with them. Even if you're not even with them, you're still in conversation emotionally with them. Clear that out. Mentally, the same thing. Cut out those sort of keep you thinking about people and and still giving a mental energy to people, cut that out, and physical, sexual, giving still sexual, physical energy to people, that is, cut that out as well, so that you can really unify your energy. And how you do that is through concentrating on your sovereignty. So no matter what you're doing, who you're with, you're never getting attached, you're never getting interlocked, you're always non-attached, you're always aware this is an experience for my learning. This is an experience for my attachment, but for my learning. And that's how we're able to really unify all of our energy, consolidate all of our energy, and really begin to develop our arc line, to develop our aura, develop the arc of timeless, multiple incarnational being in the single life. So yes, that is the download.